Good morning, church. It's so good to be reading in the comments, people watching together, even though James is a little bit sad his sister has ditched them. But it's great to be back again here on our 0 cases statewide first day. Well, I think actually that might have happened the other day, but how good is that? Things are getting better. We're getting ever so closer to be able to hang out with one another like we have once done in the past, which brings me to the first thing is, who are you watching with? I've seen the Rose have people over. I know Ben's watching at our house. Who else was there? Marika's with Jenna. There was someone else, Katrina and Naomi and a couple others. It's great to see that some people are already inviting others over to have little watch parties and watch the service. And we want to encourage you guys, as restrictions have lifted and it's now okay to do that, who can you invite over to have in your family and sit down and watch the live stream? Obviously, we're really excited to be back in church as a whole, and we still have a bunch of stuff to organise before that can happen, but you can now legally have people over, a bunch of people over to do church and hang out and do all that fun stuff that we've been missing being able to do here in this building. So how exciting. But if you are watching with someone this morning, why don't you take a photo and send it through to us? It's so nice to always see photos. Just before we ticked over to live, I seen that Amanda was posting saying that she was watching and she had a little hat thing on at work. In the comments, Marcus was trying to get online underground, which is pretty cool. Extreme dedication there. But we are excited to be able to do our watch parties together. And a few other things that we are really keeping focused on in this season of what we can do is praying, taking 10 minutes to pray every day, and that's really a great initiative just to carve out a little bit of time. But what we can do now is on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we're actually having prayer meetings back at church. And so if you want to come to a prayer meeting, we encourage you to come in on Tuesday or Wednesday and make that a really special time for us as a church now that things are opening up, which is really exciting. Thirdly, what we've been doing is our life groups. And I know for myself, I've really loved my life group. And if you're in one, I want to encourage you to stay in and be involved. And some are even starting to talk about meeting in person, which is just such a funny thing that we're even saying that, like what a weird concept. And others are still opting to meet online and a bit of both. But if you're not in a life group, send us a message because we would love to plug you into one. They have been such a great encouragement for me in this time, and I know moving forward it's going to be something really exciting and fun. Today we're talking about understanding our limits, and we're going to try to film a funny video with either Dill, myself and Streef, and obviously none of us actually have any limits because we're perfect at almost everything in life. So we actually went online to find a video of someone that didn't quite understand their limits.
Hi boys.
You alright? And who have we got here?
Anton and Seb.
And Seb.
And what makes you different from everyone else in the charts today?
Well, we got our own style, but if we had to say one, it'd probably be like P. Diddy and Usher.
Okay.
But he sounds when he sings on his own, he sounds like a bit like Rick Astley as well.
Right.
So
okay.
P. Diddy, Usher and Rick Astley.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, it's a good mix.
And guys, presume you think you can win. What happens when you win? What's the next stage?
Well, we want to be worldwide selling artists.
Okay, off you go.
Okay.
Whoa, 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 mysterious girl, move your body close to mine.
Come on, move your body. Come on, move your body.
I stop and stare at you, walking on the shore. I try to concentrate, my mind wants to explore.
To explore.
The tropical scent of you takes me up above. And girl, when I look at you, oh, I fall in love. No doubt you look so fine.
Whoa.
Girl, I wanna make you mine.
Yeah, come on.
Just let me be with the woman that I love.
A woman that I love.
No doubt you're the only man
Whoa.
who can love you like I can.
Yeah, man.
Just let me be with the woman that I love.
do I start? I mean, it's more like Anton Deaf. It's just...
Come on, Simon.
Oh, guys, come on.
Come on, we know we're good enough, Simon. No disrespect, but we've heard we're pretty good.
Look, Anton, Seb, I mean, it was just crazy bad.
Give us a chance, we will prove to you.
We will
We're
prove
different.
we can get better.
We're different.
You are
We've
different.
never had anything like this on the show before.
Absolutely, we've heard nothing like this.
All right, Louis, yes or no?
No.
Cheryl?
Yeah, no, I don't think you're right for this.
Please, give us a chance.
Guys,
Come on.
guys, it's a no.
Sing if you mind. Sing it.
You're the reason I go on in life, yeah. Better to have lost
Okay,
in love.
okay. You can't sing well
If you
enough.
mind. Sing if you mind.
Oh, for God's sake, it's a
I'm
no.
sorry, Simon, but he's a good singer.
No!
Can't take no for answer.
Guys, you've got to
Enrique
leave.
Hero or If You Mind. Just choose which song would you
You've
rock?
got to leave.
Guess it's over.
Oh, Richard, I don't actually know if I believe you that you could be better than him. He was sensational. Sometimes it is ironic that we actually don't know what our limits are, and we think that maybe we're better than we are at things, or we're doing well when we're not, or whatever it might be. But it's actually really important to understand our limits in life, and limits don't mean that we're bad. We all have limits, and different things limit us. And so this morning we're going to be talking about that, and I'm glad that you guys really enjoyed that video. Hey, one of the things that we've been really encouraging you guys to do is jump onto our website. And when you're on there, you can do a few things. You can submit prayer requests, and that is a really just a great way to, I suppose, reach out for help and let other people in the struggles of your life. So if you've got something that you specifically want our prayer team to be praying for, why don't you jump on the website and fill one of them in. Secondly, what you can do on the website is we can still do our online giving there. And so throughout all of this pandemic, we've still been really encouraging you guys to give and really prayerfully consider what that would look like for you. And we know that it's different for a lot of people, whether with jobs and all that sort of stuff has changed. But we just encourage you to prayerfully consider what giving could look like for you in this season. Hey, we're going to pause, we're going to pray, and then we're going to go into our wins and struggles. And it'd be awesome if you could share some on the screen, and so we can do a bit of interaction. But let's just pray. Hey God, we just thank you that you have actually placed greatness inside of all of us, God. That there are things that you have planned for us. There's a purpose and there is a guidance for our life, God. But we also know that there are limits. And we pray, God, that today our hearts would be open, our minds would be open to discover what we should and shouldn't be doing in this season, God. We've had this big break and we most certainly have missed things, God, but at the same time, we've really appreciated things. And so we pray today, God, that you would highlight the limits of our lives so that we don't rush back into doing things that aren't from you. In Jesus' name. Hey, why don't you tell us this morning, what are some of your wins and struggles? My win this week is, it's just been actually it's been a really nice sort of quiet week this week, and got to spend some time with the little family. And I can't even really think of a big struggle that's going on at the moment. Maybe we are having some troubles with building or doing our renos. But hey, let's jump into the next part of the service. Sorry about the technical difficulty, guys, but we're back now, and it's great to see some wins and struggles. Streif pumped that the football is back on. I know a lot of people were very excited about that. There was another one there that I seen, and now it's gone. Struggle football. Someone's struggle as the football's back on. Liz, a win. Is it my sister is coping well with her third bout of chemo? Well, let's keep praying for that, Liz. There's a whole bunch of ones coming in. Josiah was sick this week. I shouldn't laugh, but it was a little bit funny when you know what was happening to him. But it's great that we can share our wins and struggles in life. And I don't know if you heard my struggles and win before we cut down, but what I was thinking off camera, I'm just super stoked that Tassie as a whole has worked really hard, and now we have 0 cases, so that means that we can hang out together and do some more stuff. So how exciting is that? That's a real win for us as a state. Hey, we're going to go into a little time of worship, and again, I know it's been a bit weird in some ways not having worship live, but I want to encourage you. The same God that you can experience in your lounge room or your bedroom or work, underground, wherever you might find yourself in this moment, the same God that you find there is exactly the same as what you would find in the church in a live setting. And so I want to just encourage you this morning to really lean in and expect to meet with God. Expect Him to whisper something to your heart. Expect to be drawn closer to Him, because that's His desire. That's what He wants from us through worship, through coming to Him humbly and just giving Him praise, and also bringing the struggles, some of the struggles that you guys have been talking about. So let's just pause, slow down, and join together in worship this morning.
I raise a hallelujah in the presence of my enemies. I raise a hallelujah louder than the unbelief. I raise a hallelujah. My weapon is a melody. I raise a hallelujah. And heaven comes to fight for me. Oh, I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. Death is defeated and the King is alive. I raise a hallelujah with everything inside of me. I raise a hallelujah. I will watch the darkness flee. I raise a hallelujah in the middle of the mystery. I raise a hallelujah. Fear you lost your hold on me, and I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will rise. Death is defeated and the King is alive. Yeah. Sing
so much for joining us today at Kids Rock Live. It's so good to see you. I hope you've had a wonderful week, but you can get excited because your favourite time of the week has once again come around. It is time to open your Kids Rock packets. Yippee! Woo! We've got lots of goodies in there today. So have a look what you've got, get your investigation sheet out, and let's put our detective hats on, get our notebooks out, and let's investigate a story.
Stories of the Bible. Adam and Eve's sin. This is Adam.
Hey.
And this is Eve.
Hey.
Who were the first people on earth. They lived in the Garden of Eden, which was a beautiful place that had everything they needed. Adam and Eve took care of the animals and could eat from any of the trees in the garden, except for one. This was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and God told them not to eat from this tree. There were lots of animals in the garden, but the serpent was the most clever of all the wild animals God had made. One day, he asked the woman,
Hey, Eve.
Did God really say you must not eat the fruit from any of these trees in the garden?
No.
Eve said that they were able to eat from all of the fruit trees except the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden. For God said, you must not eat or even touch it. If you do, you will die.
No, that can't be.
You won't die, said the serpent. God knows that as soon as you eat it, you will be like God, knowing both good and evil.
Oh.
The woman was convinced. She saw that the tree was beautiful and its fruit looked delicious, and she wanted the wisdom it would give her. So she took some of the fruit and ate it. Then she gave some to Adam, and he ate it too. At that moment, their eyes were opened.
Oh no!
And they suddenly realized they weren't wearing clothes and were embarrassed. So they sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves. When the cool evening breezes were blowing, Adam and Eve heard God walking about in the garden.
Hide!
So they hid from God among the trees. Then God called to Adam, Where are you? Adam said, I heard you walking in the garden, so I hid. I was afraid because I was naked. Who told you that you were naked? God asked. Did you eat from the tree I told you not to eat from? Adam said, It was the woman you gave me who gave me the fruit, and I ate it. Then God asked Eve, What have you done? The serpent tricked me, she replied. That's why I ate it. Then God punished the serpent by making it so he would crawl on his belly from then on. He told Eve that she would have great pain in her life. Then God said to Adam that because he listened to Eve and did not obey what God had told him to do, his life would be very difficult. He would have to work hard to get food to eat, God said, for you were made from dust, and to dust you will return. Then God made them clothing from the animals. But God knew that Adam and Eve could no longer live in the garden because of their sin, so he sent them away and closed up the garden.
Hey, I'm excited to be with you today and share with you one of my all-time favorites, the lesson on the gift of limits. We have limits, and it's a really interesting thing to talk about when we're having limits lifted and the restrictions have been lifted, and all of a sudden we've got these new freedoms which are amazing and it's so exciting, and we can actually go to a restaurant and we can visit with family. So exciting stuff. What I want to talk to you about today is that limits always exist in our life. Some of them are temporary, yes, like we've experienced, but lots of them are lifelong limitations, and there are things that we can learn out of that, and there are gifts in the limitations. And for most of us, even with the restrictions lifted, we have a limitation. We still have to work, we still have our families, we still have commitments, we still have responsibilities, and we still have things that are going on in our life. So what about you? How have you felt with the restrictions being lifted? How have you felt about some new freedoms? And have you found that it hasn't quite brought all the joy that you were anticipating? We're going to have a look at what God says about limits this morning. And we go all the way back to the Garden of Eden. And God made this beautiful garden, and he made Adam and Eve, and he popped them in the garden, and it was beautiful. And he said, enjoy it, name all the animals, and really enjoy me. I'll come and walk with you. There's just one restriction. There's one limit for you, and that is you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If you eat from that tree, surely you will die. And so they had a restriction. They had a limit. And they didn't like it, and they busted the limit. And when they were tempted, and it didn't go well for them, and it was the illusion that they could be like God, who was unlimited. And so we're going to talk a bit about what that means today. But we really have lots of limitations. Some of them, like I said before, are temporary, and some of them actually last a lifetime. Some of them we choose and embrace, but lots of us live with anger against, or a low grade, it's not quite so obvious, anger against the limitations in our life, because every decision that has been made or made for us, or relationships actually represent a limitation. So what do I mean by that? Like, if you're single, there's some limitations around being single. But if you've chosen to get married, that brings a whole heap of limitations, because all of a sudden you're not free to make decisions on your own and decide how you spend your resources, time and money. If you want a good relationship, you're going to have to invest and make those decisions together. If you've got a family and children, the type of children you have, whether they sleep or whether they're really relaxed children, the type of children you have will bring limitations on your life. The amount of children you have, even just the type of car you'll need if you have more than 3 children. Families bring limitations in our life. Our scars from our past, some of the trauma or the things that we have been through, they bring limitations in our life. Our job brings limitations. If we have a day job, brings different limitations than if we do night shift. That brings a whole different set of limitations for us. How much money we have, how much resources we have, our physical abilities, they bring limitations. Our personality, our nationality, where we live, these all bring limitations in our lives. Whether we have parents that are alive or aging or having some medical difficulties, these bring limitations in our life. We all have limitations, and we do well to become aware of them, and even more to receive them in our life and to discover the hidden gift within the limitations. So Jesus was a great example. Jesus actually intentionally came to this earth and limited himself. He became human. He lived amongst us. He embraced his humanity. He laid down his divinity, or being God, so that he could live amongst us. And we get to see it displayed in his life. He bought food just like we did. We have to. He had to sleep. We hear him catching 40 winks on the boat. Sleep was essential. He needed to rest. He needed to walk to get to places. He didn't just, get there in a moment. So he adapted and embraced the limits on this earth. We also read, even though his ministry was healing some sick people, he didn't heal every sick person. And sometimes people were frustrated at him because he got up early the next day, it says, and went on to another village And his disciples were frustrated and say, "You're not done here. There's more people to heal. There's more people to preach to." But he says, "No, that's not what I'm called to do. This is my limit here. I'm done here. I must move on." So we see Jesus embracing the limits on his life. And there's this beautiful verse which really highlights that he lived within his limits, but he did exactly what he was meant to do. And it's found in John 17. It says this, Jesus is saying, it says, "I have brought you glory on earth by finishing the work you gave me to do." So he only did what God gave him to do. He didn't do all this extra stuff, and he didn't carry out the agendas of those around him. We even see that in the temptation in the wilderness after he'd fasted for 40 days. The evil one was trying to get him to fast track it, like make these stones into bread, jump off this cliff and become famous, or bow down to him and supersede all the limitations that he was given as he walked on this earth. Jesus embraced his limitations, and he just did exactly what his Father in heaven wanted to do. And at the end of his life, he could say, "I finished what I was meant to do." In thinking about us, are you aware of your limitations? Are you aware of your limits? It's one of the most difficult lessons really to embrace, and it's an ongoing one, but when we embrace it, we find the hidden gifts. Each of us is profoundly limited by who we are, by the design of who we are, and what we get to do. Probably one of the most disruptive things in our life is we hear parents say this many times to kids, "You can do anything you like." That's not the truth. We cannot do anything in life. We all are limited, and we all are finite human beings who can only do so much. And when we live with the pressure of being infinite and being able to do everything, we actually live with a tension within us that is unhealthy. You see, back in the Garden of Eden, they wanted to be like God. And God is, we're told that these three, they're really fancy words, but that God is omnipresent, that God is omnipotent and omniscient, which really means, in just normal words, God is everywhere. God has all the power, and God has all the knowledge. And we put heaps of pressure on ourselves where we think we can do everything, be everywhere, where we have strength, we can be all-powerful to conquer every situation, and where we need to know everything and be aware of everything and to have knowledge about everything. You see, we can't be God. And when we want to be unlimited and when we don't embrace our limits, we go back to that original struggle where we don't accept that we're made in the image of God, but we are not like God in the fact that we are limited and he is unlimited. We are limited human beings, and we need to learn this lesson. And perhaps this COVID season has just highlighted it a little bit, where we've had limits put on us externally. They've brought restrictions and they've brought emotions around that. But our limits go way beyond this season. And it's really important that we don't try to live as though we have no limits. You see, maturity, true maturity in life is where we actually embrace our limits. We're aware of our limits and we find joy within our limits. One of the questions which is really helpful to know if we are being happy within our limits is, how do you respond when somebody says no to you? How do you respond when you've organised something amazing and one of your friends or family members says, "No, I don't want to do that"? How do you respond when maybe your work has cut back hours and they say, "No, you can't work that shift," or "You can't do that job at work"? How do you respond when when you go to buy something and they're out of stock and it won't be in stock for 6 months, or I just know it's seemingly insignificant. I was irritated the other day when I was doing a phone order to a bookstore and they were making me pay $12 postage because I hadn't done the order online. And I didn't like them saying, no, you still have to pay the $12. And I was getting irritated because I didn't like that limit being put on me. So it's really important that we are aware of our limits. But it's also important to, there's a disclaimer in here, some limits on our life we need to bust through and we need to break out of, and we need to discern, God, is this a limit that I need to live with and find the hidden gem in, or is this a limit with your help that I can overcome? For me, when I was called to be a pastor, one of the things that I really struggled with was public speaking, and I'd actually cry and I would get all jittery and I would just fall into a heap. And so God has helped me push through those restrictions and those boundaries. And then coming into this season, I had to learn to speak to you through a camera, and that was another whole heap of limitations. I thought I couldn't do it, and I struggled with that. And with God's help, He's helped me overcome that limit. So some limits we do need to push through, but there are many limits that we need to embrace. Are you aware of your limits? Have you discovered the hidden gift within these limits? I know one of the things for me and John was, as we planted the church 14 years ago, and we made a commitment to this town, this 3,926 people who live in this town, as we made a commitment to the people who became part of our church, that we were going to prioritise meeting together and hanging out on a Sunday and being committed to that. That brought a whole heap of limitations for us. It actually changed the way we prioritised our week. It changed the way, or changes the way we prioritise our holidays or weekends away and time away. And it's been hard sometimes when you see people going off and doing all these other things, and it's been a limitation that we made a commitment and it brought that limitation. But in it, the hidden gift has been, I believe, it's really addressed for us selfishness within us and leading a life that would have become much more about ourselves and our successes and about how we met our needs. And so we were just reminiscing again about how this limitation has actually been such a hidden gift. For me, a back injury when my children were younger on a playground actually brought a whole heap of limitations, which was difficult at the time. And it was a real season of pain and ongoing times where I just couldn't even walk and was confined to a bed. But in those limitations, there has been a gift. For us, our choice of work, John having a business, that's brought a heap of limitations, because being your own boss actually has a heap of limitations as well. But in there is hidden lessons and hidden joy. Can you imagine our world? Can you imagine our community? Can you imagine our homes where we embraced our limitations, where we embraced the no's in our life, and where we were okay not to be God, that we didn't have to do everything. We didn't have to be strong in everything and overcome everything. And we were okay with the limits in our life to the point where we found the joy and found the hidden gifts within these limits. And there is gifts within the limits if we will pause and discover them. So I've got 2 questions for you today to go away and think about. Firstly, can you name 3 significant limitations in your life? And secondly, what are the hidden gifts within these limitations? As you discover them, as you embrace them, you will discover a joy and a peace that comes beyond your limitations, and you will be okay with the no's in your life. I really want you to have a great week. I really want you to enjoy the freedoms that we have, but also the joy in the limitations. See you next week.